Well, you know, back in April, we made some predictions, TLFs, regarding the raid, and well, suffice to say, they were quite spicy. We had a lot of faith in some specs. We were
not as much in others, obviously.
Listen, it's a different one. So I think this is like the most fun part of like making predictions is actually going back and comparing it to the present day, right?
We haven't done one of these in a while.
Yeah. So we will accept all the burns and all of the breezes.
It's already hot outside. It doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah, man. But also, we were right on some specs. So shut up. All right, like, without further ado, let's just get into it, okay? So we're gonna start it off with Frost Decay as always, and let's see where we place this. All right, this was in D tier. Now, if we look if we look at our latest, okay, this is the latest we did, but based on logs and everything, Frost Decay is in A tier.
Dude, you know what I want to know is like, can you blame us? Come on.
Yeah.
To be fair, I think Frost Decay went through 1 or 2 rounds of buffs, potentially some fixes, if I recall. There's been a bunch of stuff,
Listen,
right?
Okay, so like where we were wrong at the specs, it's 100% that most of these got either 1 or 2 big changes to either the DPS kit or almost a rework in some capacities. So this is the thing where when we did these predictions, we did it like during the PTR with the information that was available at the time, plus the limited testing. So
we kind of used.
And we had logs, a couple of logs as well.
Yeah, well, obviously we were looking at logs, but people, I mean, you know, the logs that we were getting were from people testing out the raids. You cannot really perform at the best when it's a raid testing in PTR. You only get like 1 hour per boss. So it wasn't really that great. And plus we were kind of putting it through the lens of Season 1, and Season 1,
it's
Frost
fine.
Decay
Don't worry about it. It's fine. We were wrong about Frost Decay. Let's see what's next. Unholy Decay. Now, Unholy Decay, almost
probably wrong about Unholy too.
Okay, B tier. This was in B tier. Okay, more closely to the truth, right? Because
you do say that, but the difference between B and S tier, which is where Unholy is now, is way bigger than.
But okay, we talked about back in our initial prediction. We talked about the fact that they were so like concentrated their damage on the puzzle box trinket, which at the time we didn't have any like information on how this is going to go, how the changes were going to compensate for the damage. And we kind of like, okay, we placed it into B tier at the time because we knew like there will still be a strong candidate for PI. And lo and behold, it is an A tier now. So okay, we were wrong, but not that wrong again.
Well, to be fair, it's all because it's good things, right? Because from what we knew and what we judged Unholy to be able to do in Vault, kind of changed by the end of Vault and now kind of midway or to the end of Abyss as well. So it's good to see what the spec went through in terms of the design and tuning and all of that, and actually be S tier right now.
Okay, let's see Havoc Demon Hunter. Havoc Demon Hunter was an A tier spec. Oh shit!
Well,
no!
probably not A tier spec. Havoc actually, and this is where we take it on the chin because people have mentioned that Havoc was gonna be turbo poop. And, well, it's not turbo poop, but I think in their last ranking, it was the 3rd worst performing spec in the raid, in Mythic, by the way. So, you know, we were putting it through the context of this is a Mythic rating anyway. So if people can do Mythic rating, 99% of you guys can play Havoc and do just fine.
Of course.
But, yeah, it seems like Havoc has gone through some weird-ass... It reminds me of Windwalker issues that they had in the past, where in the raid Windwalkers were just not putting in the effort.
We were hoping for some changes because we were seeing this trend of a lot of specs getting buffed, especially to their single target, knowing that the upcoming raid back then was 90% single target, but it didn't really like impact Havoc that much. So yes, we take it on the chin. You guys were right, we were wrong. Next on the list is Boomkin. Conditions. This was an S tier.
Oh my god.
All right, well, all right, we're stopping the video here.
This is probably the biggest miss. Well, to be fair, listen, at the time, well, why did we put it into issue? I don't remember. I think we were looking just at the overall numbers. And even though I think
we were talking about they were talking about buffing their single target, and we were expecting a lot more in terms of like the performance, because Boomkin was really suffering on single target back in Vault, and we knew they were addressing that, and we obviously the changes didn't impact it that much.
To be fair, I remember now, we were also looking at the logs, and the boomkins that were on the logs, they were just left. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
That's because they, between the PTR and the logs that we were analyzing, they nerfed the tier set that people were using with boomkin, because I don't think the first iterations of the raid had the tier set.
A lot of tier sets
and they nerfed it a lot, right?
Yeah,
but that's funny because boomkin is still a very good spec, but you know.
The rankings, the rankings show that. So again, the same scenario. A lot of these classes we were initially predicted got changed to their kit, or actually their tier set got either nerfed or changed completely. Next is Feral Druid. Oh, I'm afraid about this one. Okay, this is going into C tier. No, it's B tier. And whoa, this is the only D tier spec currently, right?
Yeah,
this is like performing really poor.
Statistically the worst performing spec.
I mean, we talked about the tier set back then, and what we've seen from the logs back then, it was doing pretty good. But again, because other specs got changed, they kind of like pushed it down. They didn't really get any like positive or impactful changes. So comparing it to how we predicted it then,
it didn't get as much power. Like these tier sets this time around, they're very strong, and they're very strong for a couple of specs, not as much for specs like Feral, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay. Now we have Devastation Evoker. Let's see where we placed this. This was placed into A tier. Spot on. Okay, let me hear you.
Perfect.
Let me see
Genius.
you. Listen,
Genius.
Yeah. Well, this was like by no mistake. We kind of knew where the spec was going. They announced that they were gonna do like a quote-unquote rework to the spec, and it was obviously going to pump up its damage and address the survivability issues as well. We knew about that. Nothing like heavily nerfed over the course of the mythic progression, so we predicted it. Yeah, A tier. It remained A tier. We were right. Okay, this cleans our sins. What's next? BM Hunter. Now, BM Hunter, we ranked it in B tier. So
close enough. I mean, in the last tier list, it was like top of the C tier. It was kind of like the break.
Almost B tier. Almost. We remember we talked about us like this.
Yeah, we knew that they were gonna lose the bow, and even though the bow was nerfed, it was still decent for beast mastery, and they did get a hit into the single target and maybe a little bit of a bump into AoE. But overall, I think, in the grand scheme of things, BM is a little bit worse this season around than the last season in terms of overall performance compared to the other specs as well. And the changes that they did to, what was it, Call of the Wild, they tried to change some semi-capstones over there. Nobody's playing those whatsoever, so they kind of just like forgot the spec. They could have tuned it a little bit more to kind of, you know, introduce some talent variety and some build variety. Maybe it would help with, you know, damage profile for the raid, but as it is, it's...
No, we weren't too far off, okay? So very close with BM Hunter. We won't take that on the chin. Okay, MM Hunter is up next.
I foresee we missed here.
Okay, MM Hunter in B tier. Close call. Nah, not really, because it's at the end of the C tier.
No, MM is actually not doing that great right now in terms of mythic progression compared to the other specs. So,
well, yeah, we kind of like, okay, so it kind of did good into like a single target, but it kind of fell down into AoE. Or was it the other way around?
No, so it was very strong in AoE in Vault and very poop in single target. Now it's the other way around. But it's not still in AoE, but it did get an improvement to single target. But I think MM is just a victim of everybody else's tier set is just way stronger than it is for MM.
Yeah. Okay. We can call this one. We were off. Okay. We were wrong. Survival Hunter. Oh boy, I'm afraid about this one.
I think I remember where we put it.
So okay, let's see Survival Hunter. Oh my God, we put it into D.
Well, listen. This is a spec that I get too emotionally involved, and people know that, and I'm trying to keep my emotion checks, but it cannot be chained. Survival Hunter is actually doing a lot well. I think it got a couple of buffs along the way as well. Plus, the tier set is actually giving it a lot of number. To be fair, if I recall, when we were analyzing Survival's performance on the PTR, we didn't really have a lot of logs. Nobody was really playing Survival considering that BM and MM were very strong. Post Vault of the Incarnate, so we kind of went on, you know, the speculations like, okay, well, it's losing this and it's gaining this, so it doesn't really feel like it. But overall, in terms of scaling, it looks like Survival is doing a lot better.
Okay, well, we were dead wrong, so shut up. Okay, next on the list, Arcane Mage. Oh, I know we were wrong about this one. I already know. Right. Okay, listen. Yeah. Shut up. This is the thing. Arcane was one of those specs where it did not look too good. Like at the end of Vault, going into Aberrus, it didn't really look as strong as it became.
I think it was just like last couple of weeks.
Yeah. So you've seen it rise up. Okay, we like ranked it into C tier. Obviously now we all know it's an S tier spec, but when we did that, it wasn't really, it was coming off of like an average performance on Vault, and going into the new, we didn't really see it shine at all up until like the last 2 or 3 weeks. And this is probably one of the specs that can you can make an argument for like, getting more gear and scaling up with its stats can really make a hard like difference. So we're happy that the arcade mages are going there. They're looking for rework.
Great stuff. Khadgar needs to teach us a couple more lessons.
Yeah, okay. We take it on the chin. We were wrong. Next, Fire Mage. Oh boy. Okay,
don't
Fire
put it
Mage.
High. Don't be high. Don't be high.
Oh man. Okay. It's in C tier. Okay, this is almost spot on. We predicted it's going to be in B tier. We were like Fire Mage did quite okay in Vault, and we didn't really see like too many nerfs to it or like impactful changes to like rank it higher or lower. But I think it was in Vault. I think it was struggling around A tier at the end of A tier.
It's similar to Vault. There's like 1 or 2 bosses where Fire really shines, but the rest of them don't really. Obviously, it's doing slightly better now, but yeah, we were a little bit off.
Just a tad. Well, we keep it like that. It's fine, guys. Next, we have the Frost Mage.
Oh, I think we ranked this.
Frost Mage.
We were generous with Frost Mage.
Yeah, well, it was A tier. Well, to be fair, we ranked it into B tier for the logs and all the latest data is just putting the Frost Mage into B tier. We placed it into A tier in our predictions because it was getting some love and we were kind of expecting it to be like one of the best cleave and single target specs. Obviously,
to be fair, we thought that one of the mage specs has to be good, and we figured out that there might be Frost. Obviously, we were dead wrong because it turned out to be Arcane in the end.
Out of all of them,
but yeah, listen.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between one tier, like in the B tier and the A tier, wasn't so high. So we'll let this one slide. Windwalker Monk.
I have a feeling that we put it pretty high. Oh no.
No. Windwalker Monk is in B tier. Like when we predicted it. Now we're looking at the latest data. It is in C tier. Okay, not much difference. Like we didn't really expect it to like blow up as it did in previous seasons and previous expansions. But we were kind of hoping for the spec to like get more up there, especially in the Aberrus fight, since it did receive like single target buffs all across the board.
It's always getting single target buffs.
Not enough.
It was like, okay, man, maybe this time. But hey, it's doing better than Havoc. So
okay, that's it. Okay, Red Paladin. I'm sure we ranked this into S tier, and it was no bias because I played Red Paladin on the PTR. I've seen Red Paladins in the raid on the PTR.
This was prior to the nerfs, right?
The nerfs weren't that heavy, anyways. There was like a couple of things, but I have to make a caveat here. Red Paladin was S tier for the I think first 3 weeks of the raid, if I'm not mistaken. So it was S tier. However, we made this argument all the time. Once other specs started gearing up and getting in ahead and getting their tier sets, we predicted this as well. Red is going to like fall behind somewhere in around the mid tier, which is obviously right now. So I wouldn't take this as we were wrong because we did mention that Red Paladins are going to be top, and they were top. They were top in the raid for.
Good. It's just once again, it's the tier set for Red didn't really bump it up as much as it did for
and the stats as well. Like the stats didn't really help out. If Red would have scaled as it did in the past with like haste and mastery, then you would have seen at least still see it into A tier. But I feel this is a win because it was S tier at the beginning of the raid. Okay, Shadow Priest.
Please join us with Shadows, please. We knew. We
were kind of like predicting this, and it was kind of obvious from the get-go that Shadow Priest was going to be one of the top tier specs, and it is in A tier now. We predicted it to be in A tier back then, not only because of the constant changes and the reworks and basically transforming the spec into a very potent DPS, but also like the special showrunner with PI.
Slightly biased was also that we were able to test personally Shadow a little bit more than other specs, so we kind of had first-hand experience. Like, okay, this seems pretty strong.
Okay, now Assassination Rogue.
Oh man, I bet we didn't get this one right. Oh shit!
No, we did because I remember like when we were talking about Assassination with all of its problems, it was still a prominent single target spec. And again, I've seen Assassination Rogues on the PTR on the raid and they were doing pretty great. We ranked it into B tier. It's looking at the end right now. It's looking at the entail of
it's pretty good right now. Actually, even though we were hoped and imagine that through the logs it's doing pretty well. It's actually doing a lot better than we expected it to do from our last tier list. It's actually doing really well numbers wise.
Yeah. So we weren't that far off of it. It's around there. We were expecting it because it's a single target beast. Outlaw Rogue. Okay, Outlaw Rogue was in A tier, correctly predicted.
Yeah.
Because we, again, especially since I made Outlaw in the Vault raid, it was very good. It was like consistent all across the board. I don't remember it being like the S tier spec, especially after the Sub-Rogue dominance started rising and rising. But we weren't like really concerned about Outlaw's like performance. Sure, you can talk about the spec not really being looked at for quite a long time, but as it was playing back then and as it is being played right now, it's still doing consistent great damage all across the board. So A tier then, A tier now. Let's move along. Subtlety Rogue. Now this one was close to what we predicted it. We put it in front of the B tier. Well, it was like the spearhead of B tier. Right now in the logs you can see like in somewhere around the middle of A tier. It's still like the spec is still very, very potent in AoE and it can still hold its own in single target. It's actually doing better in within some boss fights against Outlaw and Assassination.
I think overall in the current raid is the best performing rogue spec, and I've seen some eviscerates, man, and it's nice to see big eviscerates. From
so we weren't that far off. I mean, we could have easily placed it into A tier, but again, this is another spec I tested on the PTR, and it wasn't feeling as great as some of the others. So this is why it was in B tier initially. Next is Elemental Shaman, and this was into B tier in front of Subtlety, actually. Yeah, close enough because, again, when we're talking about B tier...
Wait, it was in front of Subtlety and it is in front of Subtlety still.
Yeah, it's doing good. But again, when we like predicted like from B to A tier, the differences weren't too high, especially on these picks that were like more in the middle section of the specific rank. So yeah, I won't take this as a you know,
it's a semi loss.
Semi. All right, next we have Enhancement. Oh boy, this was probably S tier. Yeah. Okay, S tier. Very interesting with this because we were kind of like very convinced that Enhancement was to be.
Yeah, from the initial testing, it looked like it's gonna be really
all
strong.
Enhancements were pumping on the PTR on the testing, man.
It was very crazy and it was looking really good. The tier set seemed to address, especially I think we also did this prediction right after they changed the tier sets because it had some like weird interactions. I remember.
But they made the tier set better.
Yeah,
that's when we did it. Yeah.
So it was a little bit of hopium. It was a lot of predicting, right? Because like, okay, if it's good now and it's getting a better tier set, I mean, you know.
Yeah. Okay. So we were dead wrong about Enhancement. It's fair. We said it was S tier. It's currently looking at the end tail left C tier. Next, Affliction Warlock. Okay, this was initially predicted to be
average
a B tier
of the pack. It's actually doing a lot better now, but I think even though similar to Reds, at the beginning of the tier, Affliction was very, very poop compared to the other Warlocks. However, Affliction, because it's getting the class trinket and because it's getting the mini rework, I would imagine that a lot more Afflictions are playing the actual specs, and it's actually performing really well now, which is probably why it's a lot higher than we initially predicted.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, it was predicted to be tier. It's an A tier now. It's fine. Next, we have Demonology. Man, this was predicted as tier for sure.
We got it.
We knew because we knew how much power they got from the tier set, and we
probably the class with the strongest tier.
Yeah, they gained like the biggest DPS increase, and even though they started off pretty weak at the beginning, and you had the Reds S tier initially, then Demonology got their tier sets, and you've seen the rise of Demonology all across the board. I mean, you played right there.
I actually experienced the progress really well at the beginning. At the beginning of the raids, it was until you get your tier set, and even if you get your trinket, plus not to mention that right now Demonology is kind of stealing PI from Unholies, but if you don't have a Demonology, Unholies would be the next one.
All right, okay, what's next? We have Destruction Warlock, and we place this into B tier, another spot on, mind you.
We're so good at this, Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, sure. We talked about Destruction back then, and we talk about it now in the same capacity. Very good single target, excellent cleave.
The problem was we didn't. The reason why we got it so bright was because the tier set is very annoying for Destruction. It doesn't help the spec that you are very planted into your soil, with the feet on the ground, and there are a lot of mechanics that kind of want you to move around. So Yeah, even though it has probably one of the highest damage in the game, it's just not able to do it.
Okay. Next up, Arms Warrior.
B tier. Let it be B tier.
It was B tier, yeah. Another spot on prediction. There was no surprise. We weren't expecting too much like uprising, upscaling with Arms Warrior.
Arms didn't get a lot of stuff. It's nice. The tier set is good, and to be fair, the prediction that we made at the time was based on obviously the logs that we had access to, and they weren't very clear. If we knew how much Arms was gonna do actually in the tier, we probably back then would have predicted it a little bit higher because everybody's just popping off right now.
Yeah. But okay, it's another spot on. So we weren't 100% wrong like you thought we were. Okay, this is
point it out. Let them know.
Last on the list is Fury Warrior, which was it was ranked into C tier. We were kind of like debating to either place it in B tier or not. It is in B tier currently, so obviously, you know, it's one of the better specs. Definitely better than Arms. We predicted Arms to be better than Fury, which turned out to be the other way around. And we kind of make the arguments in our last tier list video. I mean, okay, it's a very safe melee spec, very potent, consistent all across the board.
I did get a couple of buffs along the way throughout the season, like 3% here, 3% there. So Arms did too, but obviously that helped Fury a little bit more since it caught up with like a whole tier worth of specs.
Yeah, but overall, I think we were kind of 50-50 with the predictions. We got some of them like dead wrong, we got some of them close, and we got a lot of them right. Which goes to show, you know, we do our due diligence, our research. Granted, the research that we do in the PTRs is based on the PTRs.
It's always going to be a little bit limited and restricted since it's not the same. Like now we have access to hundreds and thousands of parses.
No, for sure. But hey, if you enjoyed it, let us know in the comments. Once again, big shout out to our Patreons for keeping on with all of the Marcelian Online shenanigans. There's a link in the description if you're interested in joining the Marcelian Online Patreon family. Access to a lot of stuff over there, goodies and all of that. And Flame, say something.
Oh, thank you for watching the video, and we will see you in the next one.
Yeah, next one is gonna be with Mythic Plus, the next prediction. Bye.
For sure, we were right.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.